You're listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter podcast. Like us on Facebook at Business Plan Radio and follow us on Twitter at BizPlan Radio. That's B-I-Z Plan Radio. You can view our latest content on our Business Plan Radio YouTube channel. The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter airs Monday nights at 7 on your community station, 89.7 in mid-Michigan, or online at lccradio.org.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Monday. Therefore, it is time for another episode of The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter, a place for business owners, professionals, and students to come learn, get motivated, share their experiences, and discuss how to grow our business and the business community as a whole. I am Ryan Carpenter, a local entrepreneur and your humbled host and moderator for these discussions. I'm sure we're all excited to be listening today, probably more so because if this show is on, it means that Monday is almost over. Probably more so that than the fact that you're listening to this show. But hopefully this show is starting to turn into a destination for you. That is the goal of this. This is our 8th episode, so we have now officially been rocking your airwaves with some business knowledge for the past 2 months. And we are so happy and thrilled to be able to do this, and we really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you. As we grow this show, and I'm going to continue to say this every single week, well, not every week, but probably for another few more weeks as we really start to mold this thing. But we're going to adjust and we're going to grow this show as we move forward. And so I really want to get engaged with you as my listeners. I would love it if you guys would either shoot us an email or a tweet or Facebook message and let us know what you want to hear. What's some content that you're seeking out? What are some questions that you may have currently about business that we can hopefully shine some light on and bring you up to speed on? We've had some great guests so far who have made it seem as if I know what I'm doing. So I want to first of all thank everybody who has been a guest on our show up to this point for coming in, giving us some time and speaking to some topics that we would all like some more information on. Hopefully these business professionals and owners that we've had come in have given you some more information that you didn't have, and if not, that's not a big deal because right now we're a little bit more generic than what we're going to be moving forward. We want to speak to a general population so we can start to grow the listenership of this program. And as we start to go, we will start to dive a little bit more into topics and get a little bit more in depth. But right now we want to stay a little bit more generic so that we can appeal to a little bit more and not exclude anybody with their current knowledge or what have you. So today's guest is another friend of mine. I guess being a business owner myself, I've really started to build a nice network of friends who are out there in the trenches and starting businesses or working hard to make their mark on the world. Not all businesses are the same. So I want to bring everyone in onto this program to share with us what their experiences have been like, what are some things that they have found to be effective for them, and what are some things that haven't. How does their industry differ from others? And how does the intermingling of that industry really work? And so we have Dr. Allie Hoffman in with us today, who is a doctor of chiropractic and the owner of a practice called the Chiropractic Professional Center, located over on Pine Tree Road, just off of Jolly, over on the south side of Lansing. Everything in this world is a business, and even though we don't like to think of our health as a business, it is in fact a business, and actually one of the largest businesses in the world. Practices and facilities dedicated towards the health industry have their own sets of practices and procedures that are more than likely severely different than what you or I may have to deal with in the media production industry or in the trinket store industry. So hopefully having her on today will give us a chance to peek inside of that industry and see what that's all about. I'm sure that dealing with insurance companies as one of the main providers of payment poses its own trials and tribulations, which we'll touch on as well once Allie comes in with us today. as we have probably heard, and as we are extremely well aware of, with yesterday being the last day to receive coverage for the to receive coverage for the 2016 year, health insurance wise, without payment of penalty. That was yesterday. So we've all gone through it, or hopefully we have. Otherwise, you guys are going to be paying a little bit of a penalty once it comes tax time. But what we've all noticed has been the huge change in the health industry over the last few years. How has the advent of Obamacare platform helped or hurt the healthcare industry? Obviously, even within this industry, there are many sub industries that act slightly different as well. So chiropractic specialty may be different than oncology, for instance. And so we're going to bring Dr. Huffman in with us to touch on some of those issues and really try to help make it a little bit clearer, the murky field that is currently the healthcare industry. Just because a business is a business does not mean that they have ulterior motives or are a shady person who's simply just trying to find ways to get more money out of you. The health industry is a business, but it must be in order to provide us with the level of healthcare that we have come to expect in our first world society. These highly trained professionals who have spent thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the education that they need to be compensated in order to dedicate their lives to helping people. They need to get paid for that. And the lights have to work. There has to be a location that you can go to and see that doctor. They need to have a support staff in place to help provide the healthcare experience for the patients that we've all come to experience and love. And all of this takes money. Money flow in the healthcare industry might be slightly different than you and I are used to dealing with in our own profession. They usually don't get paid in lump sums by a customer like you and I would if we were to do a transaction at a restaurant or at a store. Sometimes insurances can take time to pay, and sometimes they even fight on payments or don't cover certain things. It's a whole nother world, and one which I, unfortunately and somewhat fortunately, have not a whole lot of knowledge on. And so today is actually going to be a chance for me to really learn a whole lot with all of you, and so I'm looking forward to that as well. So how does the healthcare industry differ? How do people get started in that industry? You would think that that's a pretty difficult industry to get started in. I mean, obviously you have to go through the education process of being legally set up as a doctor. And then you have to go through, all of the different processes of the licenses and all of those things, getting set up with insurance providers. There's a whole plethora of different hurdles and obstacles that people in the healthcare industry have to jump over in order to get their businesses started. Even though it's a business just like yours and mine, there are different ways to go about getting that going. And so we're going to have Ali on to talk about that a little bit, talk about what the healthcare industry is like, see how things have been affected positively or negatively by Obamacare, and just have her in to shine some light on what that industry is like, and also what are some of the things that she has been able to do to help grow her business and to get to where she's at today. So we're always going to have business owners in here to talk about things that they have done positively, but I also want people to come in and talk about things that haven't worked as well. So fortunately, we have Dr. Hoffman in with us today to touch on some of those issues, some quick housekeeping items. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Business Plan Radio. And you can follow us on Twitter at BizPlan Radio. That's at BIZ Plan Radio. And if for any reason you want to get in contact with the show, either with some suggestions or if you yourself would like to be a guest, you can email us at businessplanradio@gmail.com. That's businessplanradio@gmail.com. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to get Dr. Hoffman in here set up and get everything going. So stick around with us. We will have her on the other side of the break to bring us up to speed on the health industry and what it's like to operate in that space. You are listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter on your community station 89.7 WLNZ Lansing.
You're listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter podcast. Like us on Facebook at Business Plan Radio and follow us on Twitter at BizPlan Radio. That's B-I-Z Plan Radio. You can view our latest content on our Business Plan Radio YouTube channel. The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter airs Monday nights at 7 on your community station, 89.7 in mid-Michigan, or online at lccradio.org.
All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. As mentioned, we have a guest with us today by the name of Dr. Hoffman. She is going to kind of touch on what the health industry is like and what it's like operating within that space. Allie, thank you so much for being in with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So, every single week, what I try to do is give my listeners a little bit of a backstory so that they can understand why it is that I have a specific person in talking about a topic, and just kind of provide the information as to who you are and what kind of brought you to what it is that you do today.
Okay. Well, my name is Allie Hoffman. I'm a chiropractor in Lansing, Michigan, and I own Chiropractic Professional Center. I actually am from the Lansing area originally. I graduated from Holt High School in 2004. And after I went to Holt, I moved on to get my Bachelor's of Liberal Arts at Bowling Green State University. I went to Bowling Green because that's where both of my parents had gone, and we had a long family history there, so I decided to go there. While I was there, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. It took a couple degrees, majors, 6 later, to figure out what I wanted to do. I went between going from starting off with a pre-med degree, and then I went to physics and astronomy, then teaching. Yeah, communications was part of that. My junior year, I finally picked a degree, so I ended up getting a liberal arts degree because I had so many interests, and I ended up choosing chiropractic because I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't want to have. I didn't want to be in a hospital for 15-hour shifts. I wanted a family. And I'd always gone to a chiropractor my whole life, so it was just a natural fit. So
nice. And the guests are probably, or the listeners are probably wondering why your voice is a little quiet. You do have laryngitis
yes,
right now, so
I do. I currently have laryngitis. I usually don't sound like this, so I apologize for that.
You don't need to apologize. We're happy that you were able to come in and fight through it with us. So thanks again for being able to do that.
Yeah. No, I might have to stop for a water break. We'll be okay.
Not a problem. We can push through that. So, so you got into chiropractic. A lot of our listeners, range anywhere from regular business owners to business students and people who are just involved from a professional side, working in a business, because everything is a business. And I think today's show really kind of highlights that. Obviously, people understand that healthcare is a business and a really big business. But I think a lot of times too, people don't want to really think of their health as a business. What I talked about actually in the intro to the show is that for a doctor to be able to dedicate their lives to helping other people, and for lights to be on, and for all those things, it has to operate like a business. So talk a little bit about what it's been like starting a business in the health field. What were some of the things that you came across that you weren't really expecting?
When you work in the health field, and being a patient in the past myself, a lot of people go to the doctor and they just assume, this doctor's getting paid a ton of money to see me for this amount of time. But healthcare has really evolved in the past couple of years. What happens in healthcare is most of our money is dependent upon insurance companies. Insurance companies tell us what we can do, what we can't do. They tell us how much we get paid to do something. So it's gone from really a patient-centered care to more of a insurance-determined care.
Right.
So as a business owner in the medical profession, it's not just the exchange of goods and services that you see if you own like a printing company or, a media company or
right.
something like that. It's dependent on an outside party telling you what your worth is and what what your service is worth. So as far as the medical field goes, you have to, it's very complicated.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But what we do, we become doctors not because we care about the money. I mean, you have to make a living.
Right.
The problem is we care about our patients to the point where we sacrifice a lot of our income a lot of times, because you do want to take care of people.
Yeah.
But as far as running a business and day-to-day operations, what patients don't understand a lot of times is that to keep the lights on, it costs a specific amount of money.
Right.
And let's say that, it might cost, $50 an hour to run your practice with, office staff, lights, overhead, that kind of thing. But insurance companies only pay you $35 an hour. So what we're running into in the healthcare arena, I guess, is that doctors have to spend less time with patients to be able to pay those bills. As far as me and my education goes, I went to New York Chiropractic College. New York Chiropractic College is a medically based chiropractic school, which means it's more science founded than the philosophy of chiropractic founded. The way I practice personally has to do more with, like, I do more stretching, I do more traction, I do a lot more hands-on things than just cracking someone's spine, essentially.
Right.
With that said, insurance companies tend to say, this is worth, an adjustment's worth this value, and we're not paying for the rest of it. So a lot of patients in my office do end up paying more out of pocket than most other chiropractic offices, just because I'm doing more, spending more time, which unfortunately the consumer has to pay for.
Right.
As far as a business approach, this has had ups and downs. It's good because people from their healthcare professionals, they want more time, they want more attention, they want to feel as if the doctor is their only concern at that time. And so as a business model, I guess you could say it's good because people are getting what they need and they're getting proper care. But at the same time, it's also harder to build a practice that way because people are paying more out of pocket.
Right.
And people expect their insurance to pay for it.
Yeah, and so I feel like it's a little bit harder to differentiate yourself. At least from a covered by the insurance standpoint, because it seems like basically the difference between you and the more chiropractic approach, maybe just the simple cracking, is that you spend that extra time, and so unfortunately they have to pay out of pocket for that difference. But a lot of that stuff is preventative, right? I mean, that's going to help the long-term aspect of the patient and probably the long-term cost of that patient's care too, right?
Yeah, and I should probably go back. I didn't explain earlier when I was talking about the education portion. I did go to New York Chiropractic College, which is a medically based chiropractic college. While I was there, I had a lot of opportunities to work outside of just normal day-to-day patient care, and I was in the VA health system. At the VA hospital, I noticed that there was a direct correlation between people improving their health quicker and having more soft tissue done, more traction, different modalities. So when I moved back after graduation to Lansing, Michigan, to start a business. The reason I moved back here, it wasn't so much because I knew I would have immediate patients being from this area. I moved back here because I knew I had a wonderful, CPA, a wonderful lawyer. I had people that could help me get started in the areas of business that they don't teach you in school. I did not have a business degree. So not having a business degree, I had no accounting. I had, nobody ever told, in chiropractic school, they did teach us how to write a business plan and so forth. But I never went to the bank to get a loan to start my office.
Right.
So it was, I didn't really need that information as much. I needed more like, okay, how do you, get your articles together?
Right.
How do you actually start a LLC? Things
the practical application.
The practical application that, I never learned that if I had a business degree, I probably would have.
You would think that. But unfortunately, what I've noticed, I have 2 business degrees. And what I've noticed is unfortunately, it's a lot of theory. And so they don't really get too much into hands-on application of a lot of the processes and theories that they're teaching these students. And so that was my biggest thing once I graduated, was having to actually learn the stuff that I thought that I had learned during my degree program. So you're not alone in that. I don't know that it would have necessarily made it any better. But that being said, one of the things that I do talk about every week is the fact that every business is different. And a lot of times when people get into business, they get into business for a passion or something that is like their calling. And it's not necessarily because they have a business background. And so, hopefully this show, and kind of what I'm trying to accomplish with this show, is being able to provide people with some information and with some of those resources that can help them, especially the ones that haven't gone to the business schools, who maybe not have that background information already. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So with that being said, when you got the business started, what were some of your what was it like starting the business? I mean, what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome starting a healthcare business? There's probably some different licenses and stuff that you'd have to get that I wouldn't.
Well, you do have to get state licensure, which we take national board exams, so that's probably the least hard part of it all. The most difficult part, I think, is what every business owner struggles with is, you need a location, you need office supplies, you need office furniture, you need your basic startup costs. Right. We had saved for a long time, and that's how we had started my business. But as far as, you need a lawyer to help set up articles. Right. It cost a lot of money to start a business. So that was probably the biggest stressor. I happened to be 5 weeks pregnant when I started my business too. So that probably didn't help things. But no, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned a very successful cleaning company in Lansing. When my grandfather passed away, I helped take that over, and then also started a Motorola business. And then my uncle still owns a cleaning company in town. So I had a huge group of people that I could depend on to help kind of guide me in the basic business models. Some things were right, some things weren't. But and I'm learning every single day. Like I said, I started my business in May 2012. I started. That's when we opened. Getting started, I was kind of naive to everything. I figured I have a building, I have supplies, I've got, everything. I knew how to take notes on patients. What I didn't know is I had to apply to about 12 different insurance companies in like 50-page packets. So, getting paid is how you have a successful business. So Getting paid with insurance takes even longer than getting paid with a regular business. So that was probably the hardest thing about getting started. But, once I had the room, like the whole 4 walls assembled and the insurance and stuff, the next part is getting patients in the door. Right. You automatically think, oh, all my family's going to come. Oh, all my friends are going to come. And then your family and friends don't come. Right. So what I personally started doing, because, once you just start a business, you can't just go out and spend thousands of dollars on marketing. They always talk about marketing in school, but marketing costs a lot of money. It does. And when you just start, you can't go out and do radio ads, and you can't do television ads. So I just started going to everything. I went to graduation parties. I went to weddings. I went to I went to everything where I knew I would talk to people. Right. And I didn't talk to them, thinking, oh, they'll come and see me tomorrow. I just kind of reintroduced myself. I did grow up here. I did have a history here of, everything, I was born and raised here. Yeah. But it's kind of reintroducing yourself to the, the public as a professional. Right. I'm Allie Hoffman, and I grew up here, but I came back grown up and a doctor, and, it's not the same person that left this town. So kind of getting back into the community in the easiest way I could without a whole lot of money. And I tell we have another doctor we just hired in my office, and I tell him all the time, it's not about joining the, some expensive group or putting, an ad out somewhere. It's just getting to know people. Right. And that's what I give advice to anytime somebody asks me. Just make sure you get out there and introduce yourself.
I'm glad you brought that up, because most business owners, I think, when they start a business, kind of have the same assumptions that friends and family are going to have their back and support them in what it is that they do. And they're probably supportive. I mean, I doubt that they're like going against them, but
No.
you know, a lot of times people just don't really know what your profession is, even though they know you. For instance, I was driving the other day and I heard an advertisement on the radio station for my uncle. I own a media production company. I didn't make that ad. So,
Oh, no.
you know, and so it's just one of those things that just because people know you, you know, they don't necessarily know what you do. And so, you know, unfortunately, you kind of have to go out there and really put yourself out there in a whole different light than what you were when you were just Allie Hall before you got Dr. Allie Hoffman, you know. So now you got to get back out there. So I'm glad you kind of pointed or brought that up, because that's something that a lot of people really have to wrap their head around is going back out into the world and putting yourself out there. People won't come to you if they don't know what you do. It's impossible.
Exactly.
So, okay, so getting your patients, that was obviously probably one of your tougher things, because I would imagine that in the health industry, people kind of have pretty established relationships with doctors and stuff, and then you also have to deal with something that I don't. If I go to a new client and they are already with someone, right? They don't have to check and make sure that, you know, they're covered if they come to me. So, you know, you have to deal with the insurance side of people being covered too. So talk a little bit more, not just about the networking side, but like, what did you actually do to start bringing in clients?
So getting new patients, getting people in the door, essentially, I depended a lot on word of mouth. And I knew with word of mouth, I had to be different than other chiropractors in the area. We have about 6 chiropractors in 4 square miles, so I had to be different than everybody around me. And then with that, I went back to my knowledge at the VA hospital, how we got people better quicker when we spent time with them and addressed their soft tissue, adjusted them, did traction. And so that's what I offered my patients. I was different. I spent a lot of time. Most of my appointments are about half an hour long, which in the chiropractic world is very, very long. And people loved this. My word of mouth, that's what truly grew us quicker than anything. And that's what we've used pretty much since the beginning. It wasn't until about the past year that we've actually used different methods of marketing and getting ourselves out there. But that offering something different. And that's what, like I said earlier, I try to tell people you have to be different than everybody else out there, because there's so many of every profession and every business.
Right.
What makes you better? What makes you different?
Yeah, it's had you gone the business route and gotten your business degree, that's what we refer to as the unique selling proposition. See?
Fancy.
Yeah. So that's what your degree would have gotten you. You could know the fancy terms to call these things, but that's about it.
Well, and you know, the biggest thing like going back to, you know, my grandpa and my father and my uncle, you know, the other thing I always tell people is your personality. You have to be you, but you have to be somebody that they want to hang out with, you know.
Right.
If you're not, you know, happy, and if you're not being personable, then people don't want to hang out with you. You know,
right.
You got in the business world, you know, everybody has their niche, but being caring and sociable and outgoing, those are really big things that you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine going to a negative doctor. That would be like the worst experience ever.
You are terribly unhealthy. Yeah, no, and we try to keep at our office. Everything's really upbeat and, you know, personable and stuff. But yeah.
Cool. So as far as the differentiation goes, as you've grown, you've expanded the office and you've started to bring on some new add-on type things. So what are some of the things that you guys have done to grow the business so far?
So we started, and it was me sitting in a room with the phone waiting for people to call. And about, I don't know, it's probably 8 months later, we had to hire a receptionist. Hiring a receptionist was probably the best thing I ever did. You know, it's when you get to make big moves or big jumps in business, it is always scary. It's terrifying, but you have to make them or else you can't grow. So we hired a receptionist, and that was great. And then we always had massage therapy. But there was a business opportunity that presented itself, and we decided to expand almost double. And as a first-time business owner, we all make mistakes, and I can share that I did make a mistake, and it kind of backfired a little bit. So we're kind of recovering from that. But with that said, in the past year, we've added, we have an office manager. We've hired another chiropractor at our office. And we also have massage therapy and a naturopath. So it's been a great expansion and very, very rewarding.
Nice. So it's a little bit more of a whole health, not just the chiropractic aspect.
Yeah, we're kind of a one-stop shop for health. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And kind of like what I was saying earlier. I mean, some of that preventative and really when you start adding all those other things together, I mean, long term, it probably really helps out a lot. Huh?
Yeah, and everybody works together. We all kind of feed off each other as far as, information and, what's worked for some people. And, if I have a question about a supplement or, a massage technique or something, we all kind of have each other to rely on. So, yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll have Dr. Hoffman with us, talking a little bit more about what the health industry is like. Maybe I'll coerce her into talking about what that big mistake she made was, so we can all learn from that as well. You're listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter on your community station, LCC's 89.7 WLNZ Lansing.
You're listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter podcast. Like us on Facebook at Business Plan Radio and follow us on Twitter at BizPlan Radio. That's B-I-Z Plan Radio. You can view our latest content on our Business Plan Radio YouTube channel. The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter airs Monday nights at 7 on your community station, 89.7 in mid-Michigan, or online at lccradio.org.
All right, welcome back. This is the final segment of The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter. We have Dr. Hoffman with us still, Dr. Allie Hoffman, or as I refer to her as Allie Hall, but that's because I went to school with her. And actually, my dad played football with your dad back in high school. Your dad went Division I. He was a lineman.
Yep, card.
My dad was the quarterback who was behind your dad, but somehow found himself getting sacked 17 times in a game. So I guess the rest of the line wasn't very good.
Oh, no. I think they were like 0-12 that year. So
they were.
Where they lose all, I don't know my terminology, where they lose every game.
They didn't win a single game. Actually, the last game, though, as my dad tells me, they scored a touchdown. And on that touchdown, I believe it was your dad who got called for a penalty, and it got called back. So,
probably.
And then he left and went on to Division I. So.
Well, do you know the funny thing is the only reason he got that scholarship was because somebody else sent in a film of their kid.
Really?
And they saw him. Yeah.
Interesting.
My grandparents never sent in a film. They figured he was just going to go work for the family business.
Well, I quit playing football freshman year of high school, and my junior year I got a letter from Wittenberg University asking me to try out for their football team. So I don't know who set in any tape of my freshman year, but I can't imagine me standing on the sidelines really got them too excited. Okay, so let's bring it back to business here. Before we went into the break, you were talking about a mistake that you had made in business. And oftentimes when people talk about business, they like to talk about the good things and the things that they can look at as, wow, look at what I did. But the reality is, a lot of times it's not glory. There's a lot of down things, a lot of negative things that do happen, and I want to talk about those things as well. I want our listeners to hopefully learn from some of the mistakes that other people have made, so that we can try and trim down the learning curve for everyone out there, and really, hopefully expedite the success of businesses in the Lansing area immediately, and then hopefully as the show grows, we can reach beyond that. But so you were talking about a mistake that you had made in your business. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that mistake was and, what you learned from that, what you won't do next time?
Yeah, when we first started, the whole goal was to have an office that addressed the whole patient and one-stop shopping for healthcare. And with this being said, we teamed up with another specialty. We did a big expansion. We added about 2,500 square feet onto our office, a big build out, quite cost involved. About 3 months after everything was complete, they ended up leaving. And, that left me with a lot of space, a lot of rent. And most businesses at that point would just fold. They'd say, well, they left. This is a lot of money, more than we can afford. We're just going to fold too. And, bankruptcy is really not that hard to file for anymore. But,
right.
So that wasn't an option for me. Even with all this space, all the overhead, twice as much overhead that I was paying for, it wasn't an option. We were doing too good. Our patients were so great, and it just was not an option to fold up shop and say, well, they gave up, so we're giving up too. So what we did after that is we kind of not restructured, but we did. Our office restructured a little bit. We went through kind of a spring, summer of lull. What can we do to make this place better? What can we do to pay for all this extra stuff? And it came out on the bright side. We actually, in December, our office manager ran a report, and we had grown 400%.
Wow.
Since that time. So it was, it was the right decision. Sticking it out, going through a little bit of a hard time where you're not taking a paycheck. You're not contributing to your family at all. You make sure everybody else that you work for is that works for you is getting taken care of, and you just kind of suck it up and move forward. But with that came the most beneficial growth in the whole time that we've been in practice. Which, we were still seeing about 11 new patients a week, which for us and the time that we spend with patients, that's huge.
Right.
So it was a terrible time. Lots of tears, lots of, what am I doing with myself? Why did I ever do this? But it's been the most enlightening period too of, refocusing and seeing what we could do to make it even better. And it has been.
Very cool. Yeah, I think, that's entrepreneurship, right? At the end of the day, you're the one with everything on your shoulders. And so, one of the takeaways that I get from your story, at least, is that sticking true to you and believing in yourself and just seeing things through. A lot of times, will get you to where you're going. It's just because, like you said, a lot of times people just give up. And so you can't ever win if you take yourself out of the game.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the bigger takeaways that I would take from that story. Another one being, when you are positioning yourself to bring other people in, do you think it would have behooved you at that time to have put some more things in writing in terms of that person agreeing to part of that lease or that growth or stuff like that? Would that have made it any better for you?
Yeah, and that's where a really good lawyer comes into play.
Right.
Unfortunately, my lawyer passed away. So I didn't have anybody to call at the time. And it costs a lot of money.
Right.
So, as a 28-year-old person starting a business, it was a lot of trust that I should not have put. Trust is the main,
right.
It's a business thing. And like I tell other people who ask me for business advice, because a lot of people say, how are you doing it? How did you do it? You're not 30 yet. How did you do this? Well, I made all my mistakes before 30. It's huge.
Right.
You get to screw up a lot before 30, because 30 to 60, you don't get to screw up too much.
Right.
So
I actually listened to a sales guru by the name of Grant Cardone. Some people may find him abrasive. He's one of those shark style salespeople, which I definitely am not. But it's nice every once in a while to get that little motivation, from one of those types of people. But he actually talks about issues that he runs into, and that everyone always complains about time, not having enough time. But his argument is you can actually buy time. by bringing more people on to offset some of those time constraints that you have in terms of doing that. So obviously bringing those other people on has helped with your growth. What's the next step for you? What's the next growth plan?
So the amount of right now I myself am at the max amount of people I can see a week. But you never want to turn away new people we're a word of mouth business. So I find myself going, I'll just see them, after 7. I can push it back. I'll have somebody else pick up Cooper. I'm always trying to find more room in the day to see more people. What we did was we did bring in another doctor. That's been very helpful. And he's been doing well. So that was the first thing. The second thing is starting a business from scratch. I had a tendency to be a micromanager. Yes. I was the person standing over the desk saying, "Did you do this? Did you get that done? What about this?" Hiring an office manager that she's quite amazing, but she kind of said to me once, she's like, "I got this. I got this. Go do what you do." Right. So nowadays, I don't worry about anything that happens from, the reception area forward. I know she has it covered. And, I did mention earlier that I said that trust was an issue. Trust with the people that I work with is not an issue. It's more to do with the actual owning of the business. Right. But hiring somebody that you can trust to take care of things without you leaning over them all the time is essential. Right. For us right now, I'm at the point where I can't see more patients in a day, kind of operating the way I always had. So our next step is I actually have to hire a chiropractic assistant, somebody who does the notes for me and can do the hot packs. And with growth, that comes more money spent. So right. You have to look at, output versus, cash in, and right. I don't know the correct term for that, but
return on investment.
ROI. You have to do an ROI. See,
you know those terms.
Long time ago, learned that. But yeah,
you basically have a business degree now.
Yeah, perfect. I can put that on the wall too. But yeah, no. So that's the next step for us. We have to hire somebody that can help my productivity increase. The problem is my patients are so used to that 5-minute time of me taking the notes, and because we do form a relationship, and I know more things than I know their kids, brothers, sisters, first names. So that's the part of my micromanager that I have to release and I have to let go and say, okay, somebody else can handle this task. But that's our next big step.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I feel like if you were just a regular doctor at someone else's practice or at at the hospital or whatever, when you hit your maximum patients, who cares, right? But yep. You're trying to start a business. You're trying to build a practice by itself. So you need people to come in even if they're not your patient, because you need to grow the business itself. Well, it's interesting to talk with someone who's in the health industry, just because it's hard. You don't think of patients as customers, right? And businesses too, they try to put client as a term, but at the end of the day, everyone's a customer of yours. And the business side is really interesting in terms of the interaction with the federal government and with the insurance companies. How has the federal government initiating the Obamacare, how has that positively helped your business, and how has it negatively affect your business?
And I'm not in my four-walled office right now, so I think I'm allowed to talk politics. I never get to talk politics. What we see, as far as my experience as a chiropractor, I don't know how this applies to people who are in hospitals and such. Obamacare, I didn't see much of a change in our patients and reimbursement rates and stuff. What truly affects us more than anything is Medicare. We only have probably 15% of Medicare patients, which I absolutely adore people in the Medicare age range. But the problem is Medicare doesn't pay for anything. Medicare sees chiropractic as something that you only need in acute circumstances. Right. And I believe our reimbursement right now for Medicare is around $35. which Medicare pretty much says you adjust the patient when they're acute and they leave. But when they walk into our office, you see, like we do a lot of exercises, so like proprioception, fall prevention. We do different types of neuromuscular retraining. So people who have had like thoracic, like heart surgery,
right.
Yep, all their muscles in their neck kind of pull forward so they get that hunched over posture and they can't extend their neck. Medicare doesn't reimburse for any of that. They don't reimburse for the exercises or the stretching or anything like that. So that's where, we find the most issue. Medicare also sets a lot of the standards for the documentation that we use, and they set a lot of standards for the different like programs we have. Like I'm sure you've heard of electronic health records. Mm-hmm. Electronic health records for a chiropractor aren't that expensive. I think ours runs us, we have 2 programs that we have to run, which comes with all the HIPAA laws and everything else on top of it, security, passwords,
right.
all that stuff on top of it. So I think those run us about $700 a month. Wow. For both those programs. And that's for storage and all the maintenance and everything. So with that, Medicare, in my opinion, is the main thing that needs to be addressed.
Right.
Because you're going to see doctors who aren't going to accept it. And you're going to see a lot of people who aren't going to get care. In our office, our Medicare patients usually just understand that there's other costs associated with our treatments. And like we would love to just say, oh, your insurance covered all of it. But we can't because they don't see us as preventative. They see us as things that we have to see acute patients.
Right.
Obamacare, supposedly, it probably is helping more people to get preventative care. But again, they think because I have insurance, everything's covered. And I even hear people complain about this. Like I went to the ER and they did this test and this wasn't covered. And you're like, not everything's covered.
Right.
It's not. It's.
Yeah. And that's how insurance has always been, right? So that's not necessarily anything new.
Well, it's newer. Insurance, true, has always not covered everything. But what we're seeing is, people come in with $10,000 deductibles. Unless something catastrophic happens, they're paying $800 a month for a family to have a $10,000 deductible. So, they go to the emergency room even. They get a $2,000 bill, they still have to pay for it. So right. We are seeing higher deductibles, higher copays. That stuff's just, it is newer.
Right.
So on the scale.
Yeah, and yesterday was actually the deadline for for getting set up for the 2016 year. So I got to go through that process. And so I'm wondering how much of those are people electing a plan that is set up that way, or how much is actually set up that way from an actual this is some new add-on in terms of higher cost to the actual marketplace. Because there was some options where I could have spent $14 a month, and that basically covered zero,
Yep.
Nothing at all. Which is basically just pay $14 a month so that you don't have to pay $962 at the end of the year when you have to pay your taxes. So it's a good return on your investment technically from that standpoint. But that being said, one of the things that I thought of when you were talking about that with the preventative care, businesses fall into the same issue that I think, unfortunately, the healthcare industry is falling into, or fell into, or hopefully trying to get out of, which is basically what you're talking about. Preventative care, yes, it costs money up front, but I think if you look at the long tail cost, I think it would actually decrease some of the cost, because like you were talking about with the cardiothoracic issues and the hunched over, right? That's going to lead to more back issues, to where then they are going to have to see a chiropractor because now they have an issue that needs to get fixed instead of let's address that so it doesn't ever become an issue. We get that a lot in businesses. A lot of times businesses are so focused on a quarter or on a month, and they're not really thinking long term. And so they try to save money now, not realizing that in the long term it's actually going to cost them more money. Do you think that is true in the health industry, or am I taking the wrong thing away?
No, in the health industry, preventative care probably is not. Most people they're already sick by the time they go to the doctor or come into our office, or go to the dentist or whatever it need be. Preventative care is extremely important in all aspects of your health, whether it be regular eye exams, getting your teeth clean. I mean, even your dentist can tell you if, you have different,
Right.
that can lead to heart problems if you don't get your teeth cleaned regularly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, healthcare, it definitely, preventative can help.
Help keep the cost low.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Interesting. Unfortunately, I run across this every week. We just kind of, all of a sudden, it's the end of the show. And I feel like, we didn't really talk about that much. There's so much more to talk about. So, I really appreciate you coming in. I wish we had more time, and hopefully, this show will turn into a 2-hour program to where we can really start diving into issues. But thank you for giving us some of your time, even with your laryngitis that you're dealing with.
Thank you very much for having me. It was fun.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for coming in. Everyone out there, again, you can always communicate with us through our social media channels, Facebook and Twitter. Our Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/businessplanradio. And you can find us on Twitter at BizPlanRadio. That's at BIZ Plan Radio. If you have suggestions for guests that we should have on to our show or topics that you would like for us to cover, you can always email us at businessplanradio@gmail.com. Again, that's businessplanradio@gmail.com. Thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to the program today. All of our content is going to be posted at some point here in the next week, and you can keep in contact with us through our social media sites to see when that stuff is posted, and also to communicate with us. If you have any questions or a suggestion for a topic or a guest we should have in to interview, please email us. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and we will let you know who our guest is going to be next week at some point here in the next few days. So you have been listening to The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter on your community station, LCC's 89.7 WLNZ Lansing.
This has been The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter Podcast. Like us on Facebook at Business Plan Radio, and follow us on Twitter at BizPlan Radio. That's BIZ Plan Radio. You can view our latest content on our Business Plan Radio YouTube channel. The Business Plan with Ryan Carpenter airs Monday nights at 7 on your community station, 89.7 in Mid-Michigan, or online at lccradio.org.